A husband and wife were having dinner at a very fine restaurant when this absolutely stunning young woman came over to their table, gave the husband a big kiss, said she'd see him later, and walked away. His wife glares at him and says, "Who the hell was that?" "Oh," replies the husband, "she's my mistress." "Well, that's the last straw," says the wife. "I've had enough. I want a divorce." "I can understand that," replies her husband. "But remember, if we get a divorce, it'll mean no more shopping trips to Paris, no more wintering in Barbados, no more summers in Tuscany, no more Infinities and Lexuses in the garage, and no more yacht club. But the decision is yours." Just then, a mutual friend enters the restaurant with a gorgeous babe on his arm. "Who's that woman with Jim?" asks the wife. "That's his mistress," says her husband. "Well, I think ours is prettier," she replies. "Who the heck is Larry?" "Well, Larry is the guy who stumbles home late one night and his wife Linda is waiting at the door with her arms crossed." "Where have you been?" she demands. "Got myself a tattoo," Larry says, grinning. "A tattoo?" Linda squints. "What kind of tattoo?" $100 bill right on my, you know." Linda gasps. "What on earth possessed you to do that? Why would a CPA get a $100 bill tattooed there?" Larry smirks. "Glad you asked. I like to watch my money grow. Sometimes I enjoy playing with my money. I love the feel of cash in my hands. And best of all, now, instead of going shopping, you can stay home and spend some quality time with $100. Mike and his wife Sarah went to the state fair every year, and every year Mike would say, "Sarah, I'd like to ride in that airplane." Sarah always replied, "I know, Mike, but that airplane ride costs $50, and $50 is $50. One year, Mike and Sarah went to the fair, and Mike said, "Sarah, I'm 85 years old. If I don't ride that airplane, I might never get another chance." Sarah replied, "Mike, that airplane ride costs $50, and $50 is $50. The pilot overheard them and said, "Folks, I'll make you a deal. I'll take you both up for a ride. If you can stay quiet for the entire ride and not say one word, I won't charge you. But if you say one word, it's $50. Mike and Sarah agreed, and up they went. The pilot did all kinds of twists and turns, rolls and dives, but not a word was spoken. He did all his tricks over again, but still not a word. When they landed, the pilot turned to Mike and said, My, I did everything I could think of to get you to yell out, but you didn't." Mike replied, "Well, I was going to say something when Sarah fell out, but $50 is $50. A man is in his boat out on the lake with a bucket full of fish that he had just caught. A wildlife officer spots him and pulls his boat up alongside, seeing the bucket of fish in the man's boat. The wildlife officer asks to see his fishing license. The man tells the officer that he doesn't need a fishing license. The wildlife officer looks down at the bucket and says, "You definitely need a license to be catching fish. I can see that you've been fishing today. You have live fish right there." The man says, "Oh no, those are my pet fish. I just brought them out here for the day to enjoy the lake." "Pet fish?" replied the wildlife officer. "Oh, absolutely. I let them out of the bucket and they swim around and play, but when I whistle, they all jump right back in. They are very well trained." The wildlife replies, scratches his chin, then says, "I've never heard such a... Well, I've got to see this." The man dumps the bucket of fish into the lake, then calmly turns and looks at the wildlife officer. The wildlife officer says, "Well, call them back." The man says, "Call who back?" The wildlife officer says, "Your pet fish." "What fish?" replied the man. A woman stopped by unannounced at her son's house. She knocked on the door, then immediately walked in. She was shocked to see her daughter-in-law lying on the couch, totally naked. Soft music was playing, and the aroma of perfume filled the room. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm waiting for Mike to come home from work," the daughter-in-law answered. "But you're naked," the mother-in-law exclaimed. "This is my love dress," the daughter-in-law explained. "Love the dress, but you're naked. Mike loves me and wants me to wear this dress," she explained. "It excites him to no end. Every time he sees me in this dress, he instantly becomes romantic and ravishes me for hours on end. He can't get enough of me." The mother-in-law left. When she got home, she undressed, showered, put on her best perfume, dimmed the lights, put on a romantic CD, and lay on the couch waiting for her husband to arrive. Finally, her husband came home. He walked in and saw her lying there so provocatively. "What are you doing?" he asked. "This is my love dress," she whispered sensually. "Needs ironing." A third-grade teacher had her students ask their parents to tell them a story with a moral for their homework one day. The next day, the kids came back and one by one began to tell their stories. But then the teacher realized that only Katie was left. "Katie, do you have a story to share?" "Yes, ma'am. My daddy told me a story about my mom." "Okay, let's hear it," said the teacher. "My mom was a Marine pilot in Iraq, and her plane got hit. She had to bail out over enemy territory, and all she had was a flask of whiskey, a pistol, and a survival knife. She drank the whiskey on the way down so the bottle wouldn't break, and then her parachute landed her right in the middle of 20 enemy fighters. She shot 15 of them with the pistol until she ran out of bullets, killed 4 more with the knife till the blade broke, and then she killed the last one with her bare hands." "Oh my!" said the horrified teacher. "What did your daddy tell you was the moral to this story? Stay away from Mommy when she's drunk." 3 women are sick of their boss always leaving work early on a Tuesday one Tuesday. They all agree to wait 20 minutes after the boss has left, then sneak out themselves. Their boss would never know. The brunette left and decided to go shopping. The redhead decided to hit the gym before meeting some friends for drinks. The blonde decided to go home and surprise her husband, but when she arrived home, she heard noises in the bedroom. She slowly walked up, peeked through the door, and saw her husband in bed with her boss. Mortified, she closed the door and crept out of the house. The next day back at work, the girls met up and discussed if they should all skip out early again next week. "No way," said the blonde. "Yesterday I almost got caught." The nun teaching Sunday school was speaking to her class one morning, and she asked the question, "When you die and go to heaven, which part of your body goes first?" Susie raised her hand and said, "I think it's your hands." "Why do you think it's your hands, Susie?" Susie replied, "Because when you pray, you hold your hands together in front of you, and God just takes your hands first." "What a wonderful answer," the nun said. Little Johnny raised his hand and said, "Sister, I think it's your feet." The nun looked at him with the strangest look on her face. "Now, Johnny, why do you think it would be your feet?" Little Johnny said, "Well, I walked into Mommy and Daddy's bedroom the other night. Mommy had her legs straight up in the air, and she was saying, 'Oh, God, I'm coming.' I have to tell you, if Dad hadn't pinned her down, we'd have lost her." An Army officer is having a heartfelt conversation with his wife in the kitchen before heading off for another long deployment. "Sweetheart, I'm about to be away for another year." "Oh, I'll miss you terribly." "I'll miss you too," he says with a mischievous glance at her chest. "And these lovely ladies of yours?" Blushing, she suggests, "Why not give them a little attention now to make up for the coming year?" His face lights up. "Absolutely. I'll dedicate a squeeze for every month I'll be away." He begins. May squeeze June, squeeze July, and so on, naming every month. Suddenly, he notices their 10-year-old son, Michael, standing beside them. Hastily retracting his hands, the wife exclaims, "Oh my goodness, Michael, when did you get here?" After a moment of thoughtful silence, the kid responds, mid-September? A little boy and a little girl went to the same school and became good friends. Every day they sat together at lunch and discovered they both always brought chicken sandwiches. This continued through 4th and 5th grade until one day the boy noticed she wasn't eating chicken. "Hey, how come you're not eating chicken anymore? Don't you like it?" he asked. "I love it," she said, "but I have to stop." "Why?" She pointed to her lap and whispered, "Because I'm starting to grow little feathers down there." Surprised, he said, "Let me see." She hesitated, but then lifted her skirt. He took a look and said, "Whoa, you're right. Maybe you should stop eating chicken." He kept eating his chicken sandwiches until one day he brought peanut butter instead. "I have to stop eating chicken, too," he told her. "I think I'm starting to get feathers down there as well." Curious, she asked to see, so he pulled down his pants. She took one look and gasped, "Oh no, it's too late for you. You've already got the neck and the gizzards." One night, a blonde nun was deep in prayer when suddenly God appeared before her. "My daughter," he said, "you have pleased me greatly. Your heart is full of love. Your prayers are selfless, and your actions bring kindness to the world. I have come not only to commend you, but to grant you a wish, anything your heart desires." The nun smiled. "Dear Heavenly Father, I am already blessed. As a bride of Christ, I live with purpose. The church provides for my needs, and my heart is content. There must be something I can do for you," God insisted. "Well, there is one thing," she admitted hesitantly. "Just name it," God said. "It's the blonde jokes," she said with a sigh. "They're so demeaning, not just to me, but to blondes everywhere. I would love for them to disappear." "Consider it done," God declared. "From this moment on, blonde jokes shall vanish from human memory. But surely, my child, there is something else I can do just for you." The nun hesitated. "Well, there is one little thing, but it's really not worth your time." "Please, tell me," God urged. She looked up sheepishly. "It's the M&Ms, she said. "They're so hard to peel." Two elderly ladies, Connie and Jean, sat on a park bench outside the town hall where a flower show was underway. Jean, the shorter of the two, sighed and leaned toward Connie. "Life has gotten so dull. We never do anything exciting. For $10, I'd strip down and streak through that boring old flower show." Connie's eyes twinkled as she pulled a crisp $10 bill from her purse. "You're on!" With a determined nod, Jean slowly wriggled out of her clothes. She plucked a dried flower from a nearby display, clenched it between her teeth, and, completely naked, dashed through the front doors as fast as her aging legs could carry her. Connie waited outside, listening to the sudden uproar of gasps, laughter, and enthusiastic applause from within. Moments later, Jean burst through the exit, grinning from ear to ear. "What happened in there?" Connie asked, wide-eyed. Jean held up a check and laughed. "Turns out I won first prize, best dried arrangement, and $1,000 to boot." A man walks into a doctor's office and says, "Doc, I've got a problem, but you have to promise me one thing. You cannot laugh." The doctor nods solemnly. "Sir, I am a professional. In over 20 years of practicing medicine, I have never laughed at a patient." Satisfied, the man takes a deep breath and drops his trousers. The doctor is immediately confronted with the smallest you-know-what he has ever seen in his entire career. Despite his best efforts, a chuckle escapes. Then another. Before he knows it, he's doubled over, gasping for air, laughing so hard he nearly falls off his chair. Minutes later, he finally regains control, wipes his eyes, and takes a deep breath. "I am so sorry," he says, trying to regain his professionalism. "I don't know what came over me. I promise it won't happen again. Now, what seems to be the problem?" The man looks at him, eyes full of despair, and says, "It's swollen." A young girl decided to try out a miniskirt for the first time. Feeling both excited and nervous, she turned to her brother-in-law for advice. "Hey, can you do me a favor?" she asked, shyly. "When I bend over, can you check if my underwear is showing?" The brother-in-law, trying to appear serious, observed her closely as she bent down. After a long moment, he said, "Nope, it's not showing at all. But next time, don't forget to actually wear one." A policeman, an archer, and a soldier are on an airplane losing altitude. The pilot yells to these passengers, "We're carrying too much weight. Drop whatever you got." The policeman drops his pistol, the archer drops his bow and arrow, and the soldier drops a grenade out of the hatch door. The plane still crashes, and all three passengers wake up in different locations. In search for help, they each start making their way through the woods they are now lost in. The policeman stumbles upon a little girl crying over the body of an adult man. He asks the girl, "What happened here?" To which the little girl replies, "I was walking with my daddy and a gun fell out of the sky and hit his head." The archer comes across someone crying over a body as well, a young boy. The archer says, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" The boy tells the archer, "We were playing hide and seek, and I found him with an arrow in his head." The soldier pushes through the brush and finds a young boy laughing hysterically, standing in front of a cabin with a giant hole in the wall. The soldier asks the little boy, "Whoa, what did I miss?" The little boy says, between laughing fits, "You wouldn't believe the fart I just ripped." A professional photographer is assigned to cover some of the wildfires that have been rampaging across a national park. His editor tells him to try to get some close-ups of the firefighters that are battling the wildfires. When he gets to the forest, the photographer discovers thick smoke, which will make it impossible for him to get any decent shots. So he decides to rent an airplane and do some aerial photography. He gets permission from his editor and is told to report at a nearby airport, where a small aircraft will be on the tarmac waiting for him. Upon arrival at the airport, he sees a plane warming up, so he jumps in with his bag of equipment and says, "Let's go!" In no time at all, the pilot is taxiing down the runway, and the plane heads into the sky. "What I'd like you to do," says the photographer to the pilot, "is fly over the national park where the wildfire is and get as close to the ground as you dare to go, making a few low passes, so I can take some photos." "Why?" asks the pilot. "Isn't it obvious?" says the man. "I'm a photographer and photographers take photos." The pilot is completely silent for a moment. Finally, he stammers, "You mean you're not the flight instructor?" As I stepped out of the shower, I heard the faint clatter of dishes coming from downstairs. My heart skipped a beat. My wife was supposed to be out. Without thinking, I grabbed the old family rifle from 1903 off the wall. It hadn't worked in years, but in the heat of the moment, it was the best I had. Clutching it tightly, I tiptoed down the stairs, heart pounding. It wasn't until I reached the bottom that I realized something important. I was completely naked. Peering around the corner, rifle at the ready, I braced myself for the worst, but instead of an intruder, I found my wife casually loading the dishwasher, completely unfazed. She glanced up, raised an eyebrow, and took in the ridiculous sight before her. "What exactly are you doing?" Still catching my breath, I tried to sound confident. "I heard a noise. Thought I'd scare off a burglar." Her gaze slowly traveled from the rifle to my bare, slightly pudgy frame. A smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. "You didn't need the gun for that," she said, stifling a chuckle. A group of 40-year-old friends debated where to meet for lunch. After some discussion, they agreed on the Ocean View restaurant because the waitresses were stunning, with gorgeous legs, dazzling smiles, and fantastic personalities. 10 years later, at 50, they debated again. They settled on the Ocean View restaurant because the food was great, the service was excellent, and the wine selection was top-notch. At 60, they had the same discussion. They chose the Ocean View restaurant because it was quiet, peaceful, and had a breathtaking ocean view. At 70, the debate continued. Once again, they picked the Ocean View restaurant because it was wheelchair accessible and had an elevator. At 80, they met to discuss lunch plans once more. After much thought, they happily decided on the Ocean View restaurant because they had never been there before and heard it was quite nice. Fred and Mary got married but couldn't afford a honeymoon, so they spent their first night at Fred's parents' house. The next morning, little Johnny, Fred's kid brother, sat down for breakfast. As he grabbed his backpack, he asked, "Mom, are Fred and Mary up yet?" "No," she replied. Johnny smirked. "Do you know what I think?" His mom cut him off. "I don't want to hear what you think. Just go to school." At lunchtime, Johnny came home and asked again, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" "No," Johnny grinned. "Do you know what I think?" His mom groaned. "Enough, Johnny. Eat your lunch and get back to school." After school, Johnny walked in and asked one more time, "Are Fred and Mary up yet?" His mom sighed. "Fine, Johnny. What do you think?" Johnny shrugged. "Well, last night Fred came to my room looking for the Vaseline, and I think I gave him my airplane glue." A junior high school was recently faced with a unique problem. A number of 12-year-old girls were beginning to use lipstick and would often press their lips against the bathroom mirror. This problem became so bad that the mirrors became almost unusable. Every night, Mr. Boudreau, the maintenance man, would remove the lipstick. And then the next day, the girls would mess up the mirrors again. Finally, the principal decided that something had to be done. She called all the girls to the bathroom and met them there, along with Mr. Boudreau. She explained that all these lip prints were causing a major problem for the maintenance man who had to clean the mirrors every night. To demonstrate how difficult it had been to clean up the mirrors, She asked Mr. Boudreau to show the girls how much effort was required to clean up the lipstick. He took out a long-handled squeegee, dipped it in the toilet, and then cleaned the mirrors with it. Since then, there have been no lip prints on the mirror. One morning, a husband sat on the couch peacefully sipping his coffee when his wife stormed in holding a screwdriver, a wrench, and a confused expression. "The washing machine is broken," she announced. The husband sighed, setting down his mug. "All right, I'll take a look at it." She crossed her arms. "Oh, so now you're a washing machine repairman?" He raised an eyebrow. "I mean, I can try." "Careful! Careful!" she suddenly shouted as he knelt beside the washer. "You have to open it properly. Oh, my God! Do you even know what you're doing? Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. No, 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 not like that. You'll break it. Do you even know what that part does? Where are the instructions? Did you even read the instructions?" The husband blinked up at her. "Honey, be careful with that screwdriver. You're going to electrocute yourself. Do you want to die? Maybe you should call a professional. Oh, my God, you never listen. Why are you even touching that? Use a wrench. A wrench. For the love of—" The husband slowly stood up, dusted off his hands, and looked her dead in the eye. "Now you know what it feels like when you cook dinner?" He's expected to regain consciousness in a few days. A man suspects his wife is cheating, so one day he comes home early. As soon as he steps inside, she meets him at the door wrapped in a bathrobe, her hair a mess. "Where is he?" he shouts. "Where's the guy you've been sneaking around with?" She gasps. "I don't know what you're talking about." Not convinced, he tears through the house, checking under the bed, inside the closets, even behind the shower curtain. Nothing. Then, from the kitchen window, he spots a guy just sitting in a Volkswagen parked outside. His eyes narrow. Aha! That must be him! Blinded by rage, he grabs the refrigerator, lifts it with all his strength, and hurls it out the window. The effort is too much. His heart gives out, and he collapses, dead. Up at the pearly gates, St. Peter looks at him and asks, "What are you doing here?" The man sighs. "Well, I knew my wife was cheating, so I came home early, saw the guy in the Volkswagen, threw a fridge at him, and had a heart attack." St. Peter shakes his head. "Yeah, that was a bit much. Off to hell you go." He pulls a lever, a trap door opens, and the guy vanishes. Minutes later, another man arrives at the gates. St. Peter asks, "And what are you doing here?" The guy looks confused. "I don't know. I was just sitting in my Volkswagen, minding my own business, when suddenly, bam, a refrigerator crushes me." St. Peter frowns. "Oh, you poor guy. But still, you were involved in all that mess. Off to hell with you." Pulls the lever. A few minutes pass, and a third guy stumbles up to the gates, dazed. St. Peter sighs. "All right, what's your story?" The guy blinks and says, "Honestly, I have no idea. One minute I'm chilling in a refrigerator, the next, I'm here." The Navy realized they had too many officers, so they came up with a special early retirement bonus. $1,000 for every inch measured in a straight line between any 2 points on their body. First officer steps up and says, "Measure me from the top of my head to my toes." Result? 6 feet, $72,000. Not bad. The second officer gets clever. "Measure from my fingertips to my toes." Boom! 8 feet $96,000. Even better. Then comes a grizzled old chief. When asked where he wants to be measured, he smirks and says, "From the tip of my weenie to my testicles." The pension officer tries to talk him out of it, but the chief insists. A medical officer arrives to take the measurement. The chief drops his pants, and the doc starts measuring. Then suddenly stops and says, Chief, where are your testicles?" The chief calmly replies, "Vietnam." At the supermarket, a woman notices an elderly man pushing a cart while his 3-year-old grandson throws an absolute tantrum. The child screeches for candy, cookies, anything within reach. Through it all, Grandpa remains composed, murmuring in a calm voice, "It's okay, Oliver. We're almost done. Just a little longer, buddy." The little boy wails louder, knocking cereal boxes off the shelves. Grandpa sighs, but gently says, "Hang in there, Oliver. Just a few more minutes, my boy." At the checkout, the meltdown intensifies. Oliver hurls a bag of marshmallows at the cashier, but Grandpa, unfazed, quietly reassures, Deep breaths, Oliver. We'll be home soon. Stay calm, buddy. Impressed, the woman follows them outside. As the man loads groceries into his car, she approaches with admiration. Sir, I just have to say, you have the patience of a saint. I don't know how you kept so calm with little Oliver causing chaos in there. Grandpa chuckles. Oh, Oliver? That little rascal's name is Jake. I'm Oliver. A man and his dog walk into a talent agent's office. Let's make this quick, I'm busy, the agent says, barely looking up. What's the act? It's not me, sir, it's my dog, he talks, the man declares. The agent rolls his eyes. Yeah, sure, look, I don't have time for this nonsense. Just listen, the man insists. He turns to the dog. What do you call the top of a house? Roof, says the dog, wagging his tail. The agent groans. Really? Wait! One more, the man says. How does sandpaper feel? Rough, the dog barks. The agent rubs his temples. Get out! Please, just one last question, the man begs. He turns to the dog. Who's the greatest baseball player of all time? Ruth, the dog says proudly. The agent leaps from his chair, shoves them both out the door, and slams it shut. As they sit on the sidewalk, the dog looks up at his owner and sighs. Should I have said DiMaggio? A woman is having an affair while her husband is at work. One afternoon, just as she and her lover are tangled up in bed, she hears a car pulling into the driveway. Oh no, my husband's home early. Quick, grab your clothes and jump out the window. Are you crazy? It's pouring rain out there, the boyfriend whispers frantically. If he catches us, the weather will be the least of your worries. He has a quick temper and an even quicker trigger finger. No more convincing needed. He grabs his clothes and leaps out the window, landing in the street, right in the middle of the town's annual marathon. Drenched and stark naked, he panics but keeps running, trying to blend in. A fellow runner eyes him curiously. Do you always run naked? Oh, yeah. He pants. Feels great. Total freedom. Another runner glances at the bundle under his arm. Do you always carry your clothes with you? Absolutely. That way I can get dressed as soon as I finish and head home. Then a third runner looks him up and down and smirks. Do you always wear a condom when you run? Only when it's raining. One November afternoon, I picked up my daughter from kindergarten. She bounced into the car, buckled herself into the back seat, and practically exploded with excitement. Guess what we learned today? She chirped. What's that? I asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. We learned that boys are different from girls, she announced proudly. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Oh? I said cautiously. Yep, my teacher told us that boys have a thing and girls don't. Well, technically true. I nodded, unsure of where this was going. She continued. That's how girls know boys are boys. They see that thing that hangs down, and that's when they know. I did some quick mental math. We were still 5 minutes from home. This was already the longest car ride of my life. Then she added, and when boys see girls, they puff up. I could feel my palms start to sweat. Well, she wasn't finished. Why do girls like boys to have those things? I opened my mouth, then closed it. What woman hasn't asked herself that question at least once? Honey, I stammered, trying to think of an answer. Luckily, she had her own explanation. It's because it moves when they walk. The girls see that, and that's how they know they're boys. Then the boy sees the girl, and he puffs up, and the girl knows he likes her. Then they get married. She paused for dramatic effect, then delivered the kicker. And then they get cooked. I blinked. Wait, what? By then we had pulled into the garage. She hopped out of the car and proudly fished something out of her backpack. I drew a picture, she beamed. Want to see? I wasn't sure I did, but I looked anyway, and there it was, a glorious, puffed-up tom turkey. His snood, that thing that hangs over his beak, the thing female turkeys apparently find irresistible, was magnificent. His tail feathers stood tall and proud. I laughed so hard I cried. She was a little offended at first, but when I told her I absolutely loved her drawing, and I did, she forgave me. That was the end of it for her. For me, not so much. because every year since, when Thanksgiving rolls around, I remember that conversation. And to be honest, I haven't looked at a turkey or a man the same way since.